guys, welcome back to my channel. And to those of you that are new here, welcome to my channel. I'm Ashley. I'm a stay-at-home mom and motherhood lifestyle content creator. I love to share easy recipes and easy DIY decor ideas with you. Today I am prepping a bunch of freeze ahead crockpot meals to prepare for my little girl's arrival. So I figured I would take you along and show you the easy meals that I'm making to get ahead. Now I didn't do this with my son and I'd wanted to, so I decided if I had the time, I was gonna do this before my daughter was here. So I have a bunch of ingredients out. I am missing a few ingredients for a couple of the recipes, but I'm gonna get them all going. And then once my son's up from his nap, we can run to the store. I can grab the couple things that I'm missing for a few of them. And then I'll just show you later on. I'm just gonna be putting them in the fridge and then adding that missing ingredient later, which you can always do, or you can substitute. So I will just jump right in. I have chicken breast right here. I have cream of broccoli and ranch Italian for a creamy chicken ranch recipe that I haven't tried yet. This is one of the ones where I was gonna substitute and use cream of broccoli because it calls for cream of chicken. But I figured if I have to grab a couple other things at the store, I'll just grab cream of chicken, and that way I'm doing the recipe exact. It did say though, in a lot of the recipes I read, that if you don't have cream of chicken or you don't have cream of broccoli and you want to substitute and use one or the other, you can. So that is an option. Also, the recipes call for 3 to 4 chicken breasts, but I find that just for my husband and I, that's a lot for us. 3 or 4 chicken breasts, like that is more than, it's a meal plus a few extra meals. And I feel like I don't always like having that much left over because I don't want to feel like I have to eat the same chicken tacos for 4 days in a row or throw it out. So I'm going to modify the recipe a little bit, and I'm going to be doing 2 chicken breasts per recipe, and then possibly, depending on what it calls for, maybe cutting back. But what I will do is I will leave a link to the exact recipe that I used, which has the normal amount, which is perfect for a family of 4 to 6 is what I've been reading. So I'll have those all linked in the video description for you that I got from Pinterest. But I'll just be letting you know as I go through how I'm modifying it. Because I cook a lot, I feel like I know that I can use a can for 2 chicken breasts versus 3 to 4, and it'll just be a little bit creamier, which I'm okay with. So let's get going. So I'm not actually preparing any of these today. I am just prepping them and putting them in Ziploc bags, which is what makes it so easy because I literally am just going to stick all the ingredients in a bag, label them, freeze them, and then they're ready to go. So let's jump right in. And I have a cutting board right here just so that I don't have to set anything on my counter when I go to season the chicken. And as you can see, and you'll find, like, these chicken breasts are massive. So this is honestly like 2 small chicken breasts to be on, this is like 2 small chicken breasts in reality. This could be considered 4 chicken breasts. So I'm just going to be sticking with 2 for these. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, I was going to season them ahead of time on the board, but I think that I can actually just stick them in here and then just shake it up and get the seasoning all over. So also, because I read on the best ways to prep it, depending on what ingredients are in the recipe, if it has a lot of vegetables or beans, you want to be doing that on the bottom, then putting the seasoning, and then putting the chicken. That way, if you're standing it up straight in your freezer, the chicken is always going to be on the top, so that when you pour it into the crock pot, the chicken will be the first thing in the crock pot, and then the seasoning will pour on top of it, and then the beans or the vegetables. But for this recipe, it literally just calls for the cream of chicken, the Italian, and the ranch, so I don't actually have to worry about putting anything in a certain order. I'm just going to add the seasoning and shake it up. And then I'm going to add the cream of chicken later. I also could add the cream of chicken in right before I put it in the crock pot if I wanted to, but so that I don't have to think about going to the store later on, I'm just going to get that today and put it in the Ziploc so that, like, I literally just have to pour this out of the bag and be done with it. I'm putting these breasts in here. I'm pouring the ranch on top. This recipe also calls for cream cheese, which is why it's considered the creamy ranch chicken. But the cream cheese you only add for the last half an hour. So I am going to be waiting and adding cream cheese when I go to actually cook this later on. So I won't be adding any cream cheese in right now. And because I'm only doing 2 chicken breasts, I don't know if you noticed, but instead of doing a whole pack of Italian seasoning, because I don't want it to be too strong, I just did a half a pack. And then I pretty much did all the ranch just because, I don't know, ranch is really good. And I feel like to have that really strong ranch flavor sounds really good. So I'm just letting you know, I felt like having both of the whole packs would probably be too much. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, mix this up, try not to touch the bag with the hand that had the chicken. So as you can see, here is, and I just realized I had chicken on here. So I'm gonna wash off this bag and clean it because I don't want it to be contaminated with raw chicken. So I can just touch it. But as you can see, I shook up the ranch and the Italian. So both the breasts are covered with the seasoning. And then later on, I'm just gonna add in the can of cream of chicken to it. So I'm gonna go rinse this bag off and clean it, and I'll be right back. Okay, bag is now cleaned off with soap so that I can stick this in the fridge and I am not contaminating anything. I also washed off the cutting board, so just so you all know, we're starting with a fresh, clean cutting board. Okay, so the next recipe I'm going to be doing is a barbecue pulled pork chicken. So all we need for this is the barbecue sauce. They recommend Sweet Baby Ray's, which I love to use anyways, Worcester, a little bit of Italian dressing, which I don't have Italian dressing, but I do have a half a pack of seasoning. So instead of doing, what is it, the 1/4 cup of Italian dressing, I'm just gonna do a little under this half a pack. And that should be fine. I'm confident that it's not the liquid form of the dressing, but that's okay. If I need to add a little extra liquid, I can. So I'm gonna be adding this. And I'm just referencing the recipe as well so that I say everything right. And then I'm gonna be doing a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And this is all gonna go with the 2 chicken breasts. So let's get this out. Just gonna have the bag like this to get that ready. All right, so I'm gonna start with the 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Mix that up. Now I'm going to take one of these chicken breasts, stick that in the bag. And what I'm doing is I'm folding the bag out so that when I touch the bag, I'm touching the inside of the bag and I'm not getting any raw chicken on the outside of the bag. We're gonna do one more chicken breast. So I may repeat myself, but just, you know, to be clear, so this recipe calls for 2 chicken breasts. So I just stuck with the regular recipe because especially these chicken breasts, which are massive, I wouldn't be able to eat a whole chicken breast in one sitting. My husband might, but sometimes he can't even eat a whole chicken breast, especially if we're putting, you know, this chicken on a bun or, you know, a sandwich roll. It's going to be filling. So this will still yield us leftovers, which is awesome. And like I said, if you are cooking for a family of 4 to 6 or even 6 to 8 with this recipe, you would just double it or triple it. For the sake of this, it's just for 2, so I'm just gonna stick with the normal recipe. And I was doing a bunch of food prep yesterday as well, making lactation cookies or lactation energy balls, and I'm getting ready to make cookies. So I have all my stuff out on the counter. So now I'm putting 1 tablespoon of Worcester. I'm gonna pour that in, and then so I just decided it would take no time at all to just make this into the dressing. So I am going to just add in the vinegar according to the recipe for the Italian. 1/4 cup of vinegar. It just calls for 3 tablespoons of water, so I just added that. I'm going to just pour this over the top. Right there. And now, so now I'm just doing a cup of the barbecue sauce over the top. I don't like to waste any, so I am just going to scrape this out. Get all the barbecue sauce. All right, so we have the 2 chicken breasts, the cup of barbecue sauce, the 1/4 cup of Italian dressing, the 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and a tablespoon of Worcester. And honestly, I really like the sweet flavor that brown sugar gives to a recipe. So I'm actually going to double it. Call me crazy, but I just know what kind of flavor I like. So I'm just going to do another 1/4 cup of brown sugar on top with that. So that's how I roll. Now I'm just going to get this all mixed up. You do want to make sure to get as much air out as you can. So I am going to press and just make sure I release as much air as I can out of this. And set that aside because I will be labeling that in a couple minutes. Okay, 1 more recipe. Okay, so the next recipe I'm going to do is going to be a chicken ranch taco. And I know that I just did a creamy chicken ranch taco, but we really like ranch in our house. And so I feel like, why not have 2 chicken ranch recipes? Just kind of debating, to be honest. Okay, so I was debating on which recipe I was gonna do right now because I have a couple other chicken taco recipes that I'm gonna do today. One is a fiesta chicken taco, which is chicken breast, a can of Rotel tomatoes, a can of corn, a can of black beans, and a packet of fiesta ranch. One is ranch chicken tacos, which is just 2 chicken breasts with ranch seasoning and taco seasoning and chicken broth. I think I'm gonna just prep that one now because I have everything. I realized I don't have the can of Rotel diced chilies and tomatoes, and I don't have the can of corn. So I will just do that one after. So I am just going to get these chicken breasts in here. And I'm just gonna actually spread these out this time a little bit to get the seasoning on top, like that. Oh, I opened the wrong one. This is the fiesta. Okay, so we have just the ranch dip dressing. All right, package of ranch. I'll do a packet of taco seasoning. So now I'm just mixing up the ranch and the taco seasoning. And what's great about this is even if you prep a smaller batch like I'm doing with the 2 chicken breasts, if you decide the day that you want to make this or the week you want to make it, you want to add a couple extra chicken breasts, you can always add it to it before you cook it, because you're going to take these out of the freezer a day ahead and let it thaw in the fridge. So if you realize you're having more people coming over, with this recipe, you can just add the 2 more chicken breasts like it calls for, 3 to 4 chicken breasts. You can add extra seasoning. Like I said, ours is just gonna be really seasoned, which I like, but there's always that option as well. All right, then it calls for a cup of chicken broth. So I am going to be pouring that over the top. All right. Get all the air out of this. There we go. And what's so great about these is the flavor is just going to marinate these chicken breasts until I use them. So they are going to be super flavorful and super tender when I go to cook these. All right, so now this one's prepped. This is garbage. So I just got 3 meals prepped like that. I'm most likely gonna do the Fiesta chicken as well and get that prepped. And then I may even do a chili and get that prepped. That I actually have to cook the ground meat ahead of time, let it cool, and then put it in a bag. So, all right, so they're all labeled now. I have them labeled with what they are, the date, and then how long to cook them. Almost all these crockpot recipes are the same. It's 2 to 3 hours on high or 4 to 5 hours on low. But just to be safe, if I'm instructing my husband to do it, that way he doesn't have to ask me. He can just look at this bag and know exactly how to cook it, how to put it in the crock pot and get it going. Chances are I may be the one doing it, but just in case, you know. Luckily, it's so easy that I won't mind taking these out of the freezer and sticking them in the crock pot. That's the great thing. It's like you can instruct someone else to do it and it's super easy. Or if you have to do it yourself as a new mom or a second-time mom like me, when you're tired and exhausted, you don't have to think too much. You just pull it out of the freezer and put it in. One thing I will say, which I should have done ahead of time, is I should have wrote on the bags ahead of time. Once they are filled, it does make it a little challenging to write clearly and to not, you know, get it somewhat messy. So that would be my tip. And that's something I would do next time is pre-write the bags, then fill them, and that way they're ready to go. You're not trying to write over dressing and liquid and the bag's not moving around on you. So I'm gonna stick these 2 in the freezer. For our freezer's sake, I am going to store them flat like this. And it doesn't matter with what's in these, it's evenly distributed. If you have room in your freezer to stack them upright and you're doing recipes where it's layered with different items, let's say you're doing a chicken chili and you have all the beans and vegetables on the bottom and the chicken and then the seasoning and then the chicken on top, you would stack it upright so that when you go to dump it, the chicken comes out first. But for our sake, since everything is mixed in evenly, I'm just gonna store them flat because we don't have that type of freezer space right now to be able to stack them upright. Maybe eventually, you know, I will do it like that in the future. But another tip I read was to keep it in the shape of a crock pot. If you store it upright like this, it's perfectly shaped like the crock pot. Whereas when you're storing them flat, it's going to be a lot wider than the crock pot. But since you have to take it out a day ahead and thaw it in the fridge anyways, it doesn't matter because once it unthaws, you'll be able to move it and you could pour it in the normal way. So just a couple tips, even though you'll read that with the recipes, I figured I would mention it. So I think I just heard Luca woke up. We're gonna head to the store, grab a couple ingredients, and then I will be showing you a couple more meals here in a little bit. Okay, so the next recipe I am putting together right now is going to be a sweet potato basil soup. This one is vegetarian, which I like because all the recipes I've done so far have been chicken, and I'm gonna be doing some chili with ground meat. So I feel like having a couple of veggie options is really good. I'm always trying to incorporate fruits and vegetables any way I can. And typically I don't necessarily enjoy eating vegetables raw all the time. I definitely have to be in the mood, or I have to make myself eat them before I have, you know, my meal, like having veggies with hummus. Or sometimes I'll cook vegetables, but like I'll try and eat most of them before I finish the other stuff, because sometimes you don't finish them. So anyhow, that's filled with sweet potato and onion and vegetable stock is good. So I already did the prep because you don't want to see me cut up sweet potatoes. What I have here is 2 peeled and cut up sweet potatoes. I have a half of yellow onion sliced, and then I have 2 cloves of garlic minced. And then I'm going to be measuring out 2 tablespoons, or I have to double check. I think it might be 1 tablespoon of basil. So I'm gonna start, and as you can see, I labeled the bag ahead of time so I don't have to try and label it with the food inside. And with this recipe, you actually cook on high in the crock pot for 3 hours. So if you wanted to leave and go do things for the day, I'm sure you could cook it on low for 4 to 5 hours, which would be fine. But for some reason, this did call specifically to cook on high for 3 hours. So I don't see why it would be an issue cooking it low and slow, but I just wanted to note that because all the other recipes have given options. So I am just putting all the sweet potato here in the bag. Also gonna mix in some onion. Gonna toss that in to get that mixed up. Actually get some garlic in here too. Give that a good mix. All right. So I have all that in the bag. Now I'm going to pour over the tablespoon of basil. I'm actually just gonna double check real quick. Okay, so now I'm putting in the tablespoon of basil. I started to put in a tablespoon and wanted to double check that it wasn't 2 tablespoons or half a tablespoon. So now I have that in here. I am actually just going to kind of mix this up a little bit while it's dry, because I find that when it's dry, it just easily mixes up. All right, so got that basil in here. Calls for 1 cup of vegetable broth, which I have chicken broth, not vegetable. So I'm actually gonna use vegetable soup. It's gonna be around a cup because this can is actually 10 ounces, which is a little over a cup. But I figure with the vegetables contained in the soup, that'll be just more veggie for the soup and a little bit less liquid. So this should be about 8 ounces. A little bit of extra liquid isn't gonna hurt it. Ultimately, we're just gonna puree this after it cooks in the crock pot anyways, so. All right, so condensed vegetable soup, which I did realize looks like has some noodles in it. Oh well, that should be fine. And then it calls for 1 14-ounce can of coconut, 13.5 ounces instead of 14. Once again, totally fine. We're gonna dump that in. And so one thing I love about cooking is that, especially soup recipes and sauce recipes, they're very forgiving. If you need to substitute, if you need to add a little bit more of something and a little less of something, it generally will be okay. It's pretty rare that you can mess it up, unless of course you're putting 5 tablespoons of a seasoning instead of 5 teaspoons, because that can make something taste really off. Hi, Bubby. Hi. a good nap? I saw that you opened the door and then you closed it again and went back to sleep. Yeah. Oh, I love you so much. Mommy's food prepping, getting stuff ready. So when Sissy gets here, we got lots of dinners in the freezer.
Smells really good.
Oh, thanks, babe. All right, I love when my son gets up to give him cuddles, so I had to give him lots of love. Okay, so now I have everything in here. I have the tablespoon of dried basil, 2 sweet potatoes, the can of vegetable broth, which I ended up using condensed vegetable soup, like I said, a half an onion, 2 cloves of minced garlic. What's wrong? All right, so everything's in the bag. Now I'm just gonna shake it together. So lesson learned, I always try and reuse bags whenever I can, especially if they just had rolls or something in it. But I did realize that the bag I had used for the sweet potato actually had a hole in it, so it started leaking. So I am double bagging it. And basically what I'm gonna do when I cook this, since I substituted condensed vegetable soup instead of broth, is when I pour it in the crock pot and I start to cook it, if I notice that it needs more liquid, I will just add some vegetable broth at that time, or I can add some chicken broth. I'm okay with there being chicken product in it. I just love getting extra veggies. So if I have vegetable broth on hand, I'll do that. If I have chicken broth, I'll do that. Now I'm just gonna spread this out, get it flat. You can still see the writing right here, and stick this in the freezer. One more meal done.